Welcome to Writer's Way Podcast, the podcast where we step into the enchanting world of authors as we delve into their unique writing journeys and the captivating tales behind their stories. Today, we're very much honored to have Magdalena Edmonson, author of Grace and Gratitude, Developing Personal Prayer. Prayer is the key to building a personal connection with God. Without it, we may struggle to hear His voice or fully appreciate His grace. In Grace and Gratitude, Developing Personal Prayer, author Magdalena Edmonson offers a creative, practical guide to deepening your prayer life. Born from her own journals, the book encourages regular prayer and helps readers overcome the frustration of feeling unheard by God. Edmonson shares her journey of learning to recognize God's voice through journaling and unexpected thoughts, and hopes her experience will inspire others to connect more deeply with the God who loves, provides, and understands our deepest needs. Talk time with our host, Mia Thompson, and the author of Grace and Gratitude, Developing Personal Prayer, Magdalena Edmonson.
So, to start, can you briefly introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background, Magdalena?
Okay. So, my name is Magdalena Edmonson. Most people call me Maggie. I am a former math teacher. I'm originally from Budapest, Hungary. We were refugees in 1956 when I was 9 years old. And I felt like God worked very hard in getting us to this country, and I felt like because of all the ways that He worked in getting us here, that He had a special plan for my life. And so throughout my growing up, I had that idea. I thought the only way I could pay Him back for all the goodness that He has given me is by becoming a nun. And so from age 11 to 19, that was my one ambition in life until I graduated from high school, got a job, and met a gentleman that I happened to fall in love with. So I took a detour, and I went to college for 1 year, and then after that year we got married, and then he finished sending me through school, and after that our first son was born in 1973. By that point, I had pretty much lost all my faith. All the ideas I had growing up kind of went by the wayside until my son was born, and I felt like, well, somebody has to teach this child some morals, and the only place I know morals are taught was in church. So since I can't expect the baby to go to church by himself, I guess I got to go. And so I started going back. And then the Lord worked marvelous things in that, and eventually led me to the charismatic renewal. And I recommitted my life to the Lord and started on a very sporadic prayer life. Wow. And I couldn't really keep it going very much, but I kept on trying. So, how are we doing?
Oh, that's good to hear that. It seems like, it's really a purpose of yours that you were able to, to write this book as well. Well, somehow, Maggie, may I know what inspired you to write this book, and how has your personal prayer journey influenced its message?
Okay, so basically, as I struggled with continual prayer, my prayer life was quite sporadic, and sometimes I would go for weeks or months and only did the bare minimum. And so I felt like I needed more help. Eventually I started writing, and I started a journal, and my journal is a little different than most journals in that I would write down whatever I wanted to say to God, and then I'd write down what I thought He might say to me. And after a while, it seemed like I was having a two-way conversation with God in my writing. My writing slowed my mind down enough that I could concentrate better. And as I reread some of the things I had written, they seemed pretty cool. They seemed more inspired than I had ever thought. And so I just kept doing that off and on over many years. I started in 1989, and I didn't publish the book until 2002. So there was a lot of time going in between. But I finally felt that there was too many good things that I thought the Lord had given me to keep just to myself, and that's why I wanted to write a book. And so I wasn't quite sure how to put all this in a cohesive manner so that it would be readable until COVID hit, and I had a lot of time on my hands, and suddenly I got the inspiration. There's a prayer that it started out as my goal in life, and it became a prayer. And so once I contemplated on this prayer, like every line of it became a chapter in the book. And I call it Maggie's Prayer, and originally it was like, this is what I want my life to be like, but eventually it turned into a prayer. And I don't know if you want me to recite the whole thing. It's at the end of chapter 2.
Well, if you would like to, then I would really appreciate that as well, so that
okay, well, it says,
all
right. It says, Lord, let me make me, or help me trust you completely, be obedient to you in all things, be wise in your ways, be a pleasure in your sight, be a credit to your name, walk with you, talk with you, and abide in your love, do the things you do or want me to do, be continually filled with your Holy Spirit. Suddenly I'm getting a blank, but okay. Know you, love you, and serve you more each day, and live with you eternally. And I might have missed a couple of spots, but that's basically the prayer. And so the first 2 chapters in the book just kind of give you a background to my life and how I got to that point. And then the rest of the book is each one is a line in that prayer. And I just took cut and pasted, because I had put everything into the computer. So I had all of these notebooks that I had transcribed into the computer. So I just cut and pasted the things that fit each section. And that's how the book came about. And people that I talked to seemed to be inspired by it. And some of the things are just funny. Some of them are pretty serious. I went through, there's a part in the book where I described what went through me as when my husband died, and certain other things. You know, there were some really interesting parts in the story.
Now, can you share a moment from your own prayer life that deeply shaped your understanding of grace and gratitude, Maggie?
Basically, all of my life, I was trained to be grateful. When we came to this country, people were so good to us, and we just kind of lived in gratitude for a long time, because at first we didn't even speak the language, and people had to teach us all sorts of things, and they had to take us places because we didn't have transportation and things like that, and everyone was so good to us that the gratitude was just built into me. And as I looked back at what God had done for me, I saw how many gifts He had given me. He had given me so many. He was just there for all of the events of my life, and that is what I consider grace, His gifts. And so the automatic response to that is gratitude. And the Lord honors that. You know, if the only prayer you know how to say is thank you, that's enough. And so that is why it, you know, the title of it became Grace and Gratitude, because everything we have is given to us. We come to this world with nothing, and everything we have is given, and all our talents are given to us, and I just grew to really appreciate all of these things.
Yeah. Well, prayer isn't just about asking for things, you know. It's a way to develop an intimate connection with God as well.
Right,
the more we
right.
pray, the more we align ourselves with God's will and presence. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So what role does gratitude play in deepening one's prayer life, and how can someone cultivate it even in difficult times?
A lot of times when we go through a difficult time, that is when the Lord is actually teaching us something. And that is how we learn. We don't usually learn that much through the good things. It's usually through the difficulties that we develop character, we develop virtue in overcoming these difficulties. And looking back at those things, you can't help but be grateful. You know, the gratitude comes seeing what God has done, what God is doing. And even when you're going through a difficult time, like this summer, I went through open heart surgery. It was, at first when they told me I had to have open heart surgery, it kind of threw me back a little bit. But then I realized, well, you know, I had just asked God to heal my heart. If he chooses to do it through open heart surgery, that's his business. And so I developed the attitude at that point right there. I chose that I will be grateful for what he is doing. And I was beautifully treated through a whole month of hospital stay and developed, you know, and now I'm doing very well. I just graduated from cardio rehab yesterday.
Congratulations to you, Maggie.
Thank you.
Yeah, this book really teaches that, you know, God is always speaking, you know, but we must learn how to listen and recognize his voice.
The first two chapters in my book, the first one is choosing to believe that he is who he is.
Yeah.
And what the Bible tells us that he is, who the Bible tells us he is. And the second chapter was on hearing God, listening to his voice and how we can hear his voice. Because I don't hear his voice in my ears, I hear his voice in my thoughts. Mm-hmm. And once I learned that, it made life a lot easier for me.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. Now, your book, Maggie, is based on personal prayer journals. What was it like to share such intimate reflections with the world?
Actually, I never thought of it too much. It was just, I was so impressed with how good God was in the way he answered my questions and the way he encouraged me even when I was down, even when I felt like I was doing miserably. He never condemned me. He never said anything except encouragement. He always forgave me. And I thought this was just so good that people needed to hear that. Mm-hmm. And I don't have any secrets. I speak, you know, what I think is helpful to people, and I thought these things would be helpful to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you know, putting prayers into writing, it could reveal God's responses in a ways that we might others miss, you know, and help believers track their spiritual journey as well, right?
Right.
So, yeah. Well, how do you think, Maggie, personal prayer differs from communal prayer, and why is it important for, you know, spiritual growth?
Okay. Now, I went to church regularly for most of my life before I lost my faith, okay? But at the same time, I felt like I knew things about my faith, but it was all on the surface. And I think communal prayer is more on the surface. But then once I started in personal prayer, it grew roots. It became much deeper, because the surface that I had, I was able to just ditch when when things, in my college years and early marriage, I didn't think it was all that important anymore, so I just threw it out. But once it came back with roots, then it just has been growing and growing and growing. And I think that's what happened to me when I recommitted my life to the Lord. The faith I had before came back, but it came back with roots. And I was able to hold on even when things got very difficult, and in fact grow even more from the difficulties. While before, when I ran into difficulties, I just kind of ditched the whole thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a message that silence does not mean that God is absent, right? Like,
right.
Faith is trusting that God is working even when we can't see, or hear His response.
That is true.
Yeah. Many people struggle with, consistency in prayer. Now, what advice do you offer to those who find it difficult to maintain a regular prayer practice?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what happened to me, is that I had a very difficult time being consistent. And I actually didn't become that consistent until just a few years ago, because life just has a way of getting away from you. But what really encouraged me is that God never was absent during the times that I felt like I was absent, that He was still there, and He would, when I did come back to Him, He always just encouraged me. He was very ready to forgive me for anything, and was always just welcoming me back. And that really encouraged me, and it finally gave me the desire to commit to a certain time every day. For a while, it was 3:00 in the morning, and middle of the night was the best time for me to pray for a very long time, because everything was dark and everybody else was asleep, and everything, I could just get up and enjoy the presence of God and be able to converse with Him. And I got a lot of the best things that are in the book through times of prayer around 3:00 in the morning. Now that has changed. Now I just before I go to bed is when I pray best. For a while I was praying, first thing in the morning. You pretty much have to gauge what your life is like at the time and adjust to it the best you can. And just remember that if you miss it or somehow it gets away from you, you can always go back. The Lord will always welcome you back. Exactly. And that's what He's always done with me. Yeah.
Well, I do appreciate that, all of that, because it's some way we all know that Lord is in our heart. He always listens, whatever it is.
Right.
Yes. So, what are some common misconceptions about prayer that you address in your book?
Well, a lot of times we have misconceptions about who God is. I don't know how many times He had to tell me He's not one of the slave drivers of Egypt. Mm-hmm. That, what He desires of us is not as difficult as we think it is. Mm-hmm. And I think that was one of the big ones. I often had a conversation with the Lord about His invisibility. I said, it's that invisibility thing of yours that's driving me nuts. And he kept telling me, it may be difficult right now, but it's necessary. and then eventually I began to see ways where his invisibility is really a good thing. And so many times I would come to him, I said, okay, Lord, I need a whole attitude transplant. My attitude is not right, and you got to do something about it. And he does. Somehow he calms me down and makes things work out better. Basically, we misjudge him so much because the world has trained us to misjudge him. When we think of acts of God, what do we think of? We think of earthquakes and fires and thunder and lightning, but God is love, and we don't think of him that way.
Yeah, exactly. Well, does your book include any specific exercises or practices that readers can apply immediately to improve their personal prayer life, Maggie?
Yeah, at the end of chapter 2, I have what I call my parables. And these are things that the Lord has it's kind of like, one of them somebody really appreciated. One day the Lord told me I was like a milk pitcher. Okay, where he he can fill me up with something that's nutritious and wonderful, and as I serve other people, that milk gets poured out, and it helps them out. But what happens to that pitcher after most of the milk is gone out and it just sits there? The milk in there sours. And I found out that a lot of times when the Lord used me in somebody else's life, very soon thereafter I was in sin. I was doing something totally wrong, and I knew I was wrong. And I said, okay, Lord, you just used me in a wonderful way. How come I'm in sin? And he said, what you have to do is you have to come to me after I used you and be cleansed and refilled. And that has been something that he has used over and over in my life. And one lady called me recently and said that was the best thing that she'd ever seen, because she identified totally with that. And so we need to return to the Lord in prayer to ask for cleansing and refilling when he has used us in any good work, anything that has helped someone else.
Yes. Well, for someone who feels distant from God, Maggie, now, where should they start?
Basically, start talking to God as you would talk to a friend. Just see what happens. In other words, the best way to start is to start. Just get started somehow. Now, for me, it worked better when I started writing because it slowed my mind down enough. And maybe that is a way to start, is just write down what you want to say to God, and then write down what you think he might say back to you. Or if you don't want, if writing is not something you can do, then just try talking to him in such a way that you're able to see what thoughts come back at you, and see if that would work. In the book, I tell you, I recount what one of our friends, one of my mentors, has taught us, is that whenever you get a thought that you don't usually get, and it's good and it's uplifting, it might be God talking to you. And she said that one day she was doing her housework, and all of a sudden a thought came to her mind, Anne, I love you. And she said she thought about it, and she said, I don't usually tell myself that I love you. She says, Lord, is that you? And that's how she began to have that kind of conversation with the Lord, is to realize that he was speaking to her, and that, that there's a way to respond, and that, we can bring our troubles to him. And whether we get an answer right away or not, it doesn't matter because he has heard us.
Exactly. Now, how can someone use grace as a foundation for overcoming personal struggles or setbacks in their spiritual journey?
For me, the best thing is repentance. Whenever I find that I've fallen away, or I've gone, or there's things that I thought were too difficult, I come back to the Lord and I say, okay, Lord, I think I'm wrong. You must be right. What's going on here? And you just start conversing again. And it's just a matter of doing it. And there were also times when I didn't feel like praying. I didn't feel like getting up in the middle of the night. And then the thought would come to me, I refuse to be robbed of my time with the Lord. I refuse to be robbed. I don't care how I feel. I'm going to do it anyway.
Well, if a reader could take just one key lesson from your book, what would you want it to be, Maggie?
I would want them just to try it, just to get started and do whatever works. However you can connect with the Lord and become. At first, it's just a friendship, but eventually it grows into a deep love. And that is the goal, because love is what he is about, and love is what he desires for us. And we are to love our Lord and God with our whole heart.
Exactly.
But it takes time and development. It doesn't come immediately. I always felt bad that I didn't love him enough. For a while I didn't even know if I loved him at all, but I knew he loved me, and that's where his love is the grace, and my response is the gratitude, and that gratitude grows into love, and that is why I called the book Grace and Gratitude.
Perfect. So, well, actually, one of the questions here as well is the ideal audience for grace and gratitude. And I can see here as I, listen to all of your responses, is for everyone, for everyone.
Essentially, yes.
Yes.
I'm working on a sequel now. The next book is going to be on the fruits of the Spirit, because I believe the fruits of the Spirit is what the character of God is, and the character that he wants to build in us. And so so there's a lot more yet to come. And I'm really excited about getting ready to get that one published.
Yes. So one last question. This is from your sponsors. Now, are there any upcoming events like book clubs or speaking engagement where readers can connect with you, Maggie?
Absolutely not. Unfortunately, I'm fairly disabled. I'm legally blind, and I right now I'm still using a walker to walk around, so I don't get around much. If anybody wants to get a hold of me, I do have a website. It's called M to the Fifth Power. It's all one word, MTOTHE, the number 5, THPOWER, .net. So they can learn a little bit more about the book. As far as I'm concerned, email is the best way to get a hold of me, because with my eyesight, I don't read very well anymore, except my computer can read to me, and it can also magnify things well enough that I can handle it. So, but I don't get around much. I'm 77 years old at this point, and slowing down quite a bit.
Yeah, well, no worries for this one, Maggie. I really appreciate you for sharing all of this. I learned that Grace and Gratitude yearbook is not just about prayer. It's about transforming how we experience God. And by combining gratitude, journaling and deep faith, well, this book would help readers, develop a lifelong, meaningful prayer connection with the Creator. So, well,
Exactly.
yeah, well, thank you so much for for participating this interview, Maggie. So, before I'll end this interview, do you have any concerns, or do you have anything that you want to tell to your readers?
I can't think of much. I'm hoping that it's helpful to people. That's all I really wanted, and whether it sells or not that's up to God. I think He wanted me to write it, and so out of obedience I did that, and enjoyed doing it too. And so I just hope it really touches people and helps them out. That's all I really want.
Yeah. Well, for me, it would really make the prayer accessible. Whether a beginner or someone looking to renew their faith, this book would really offers, practical guidance.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you again. Thank you so much, Maggie. And yeah.
Okay. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome,
All
Maggie.
right.
And again, this is Leah Thompson, and I'm here with Magdalena Edmonson, which is the author of the book Grace and Gratitude: Developing Personal Prayer. Thank you so much. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.